Welcome everyone to today's Chamber Live event. It's the 16th of March, coming up to nearly a year anniversary of the first lockdown, and what a year it has been. But all the way through, we've hopefully, through events like this and our virtual networking events, enabled our members and others to keep in touch with each other and also find out about what's actually been going on within Greater Manchester. Everything hasn't been on hold. There's been a lot of stuff going on, and we'll hear a lot about that and some of the exciting things that's going on in Greater Manchester today during the course of the next 30 to 40 minutes. Usual Zoom rules apply. If I could please ask people to mute your microphones and not have any funny noises going off in the background. If you've got any questions or you want to say hello to people, we've got the chat facility that's live, the chat box. So please, if you want to introduce yourself, please do so to other people on the event today. Or like I said, if there's a particular thing you may want to ask one of our speakers or something in general, please pop it in there and we'll try and get through as many as we possibly can. We'll be here for, like I said, it's probably about 30-35 minutes event today. We are recording it and we do publish it within 24 hours on our YouTube channel and also through our podcast as well. So if there's a bits that you want to watch again or you want to send through to people that weren't on, colleagues, acquaintances, whatever it is, please feel free to do so. So we'll make a start today, and one of the things I'm really looking forward to this bit, I'd like to introduce our first guest speaker today. It's Dr. Sean Brophy, who's the project manager of AI Foundry at Manchester Metropolitan University. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Chris, and thank you for having me.
That's absolutely superb. So first of all, just explain a little bit about AI Foundry and also your role, and just to help people understand what it's about.
Absolutely. So the Greater Manchester AI Foundry is a new project. So we kicked off last summer, but we're kind of just getting off the ground now. So it's a £6 million ERDF funded project. It's a 3-year initiative. And it's actually delivered by 4 universities. So Manchester Metropolitan University that you mentioned, Chris, Lancaster, University of Manchester, and Salford. So I oversee the project across the 4 universities. And really the goal of the project is really to deliver kind of AI business innovation to local Greater Manchester businesses. So the goal is to touch about 170 businesses. And of those 170, we're hoping to work with them to develop about 30 new products. So these are kind of new products that are using AI in some form or fashion. These could be new to market products, or these can be products that are new to the firm. And by products, with AI, with any kind of data-driven technology, the definition of what a product is fairly broad. So it can be like a B2B type product, a B2C product, or it can be a new internal system as well.
Okay, and these businesses, I'm presuming SMEs can take part and get access to help through this as well. It's not just for your sort of larger companies. This is aimed at any size business.
So the Greater Manchester AI Foundry is specifically working with SMEs. Right. So not so much the large corporates. Now, when we look at kind of why that is, oftentimes it is the small and medium-sized enterprises that are slow to adopt new technology like AI. So we know how long it took a lot of SMEs to use something like CRM. I'm working with SMEs today that are still kind of signing up and integrating CRM into their processes. So what we're hoping to do is, for at least the businesses that we're able to interact with, is really kind of accelerate the use of AI, because AI holds a lot of promise. A lot of people think of AI as kind of like science fiction type technology. It's really not. It's actually kind of mundane, but it's in the mundane where we can really drive productivity for the local SMEs that we're working with.
And I guess that's one of the things I think you've sort of hit a very important point there, because it's this sort of, you hear AI in a conversation, you immediately think about all sorts of things, 2001 and HAL and all this, that, and the other, and it seems very remote, doesn't it, from the real world? But I think the bit there you mentioned about it can be the mundane, and it's, I suppose, in a way, it's part of the use of greater digitalisation and technology to drive business efficiency.
Exactly. So if you think about what AI is like good at, it's really not the stuff of science fiction. It's not the Terminator stuff. It's really simple things like automating structured and repetitive work processes. So think about using technology to read receipts that then go into an expense report.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of AI. Also, it can really help gain insight through analyzing extensive data sets. So we're familiar with analysis paralysis, that there's too much data at our fingertips. It can be customer data, it can be transaction data. AI can really kind of make sense of that big data problem. And then it helps us to better engage with customers and employees. So that can be chatbots, or it can be, learning from customer behaviors on our websites to put the right products in front of them from an advertising perspective. So that's kind of what AI is. And so I said mundane. So that is mundane compared to Terminator, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting. We're having this sort of conversation, and I always refer to things. If you're having this sort of conversation 2 or 3 years ago, people would have been looking like a little bit, what on earth? It feels natural now, doesn't it? This type of conversation and looking at how businesses can take advantage of things like this just feel part of the landscape, really. But I guess there's a lot more that needs doing just to sort of maybe bust a few myths, isn't there, really, and just to get businesses to accept it, really, as part of the processes going forward.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing on Zoom, but right now I'm getting this notification that Otter AI is transcribing it live.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of the power of artificial intelligence. Again, it's not the Terminator stuff, but it's taking something that used to be a very laborious human process, and it was expensive to get audio kind of transcribed by humans as well. And it's done kind of automatically, and it's done to a very high degree. So Otter AI is about 95% accurate. Okay. And that was not true 5 years ago. That wasn't true 2 years ago. So it's rapidly changing. So the sooner that kind of SMEs can get on board with the technology and start to embed it in their process, the better off they will be. I think it is one of those instances where first mover advantage is key.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any cost associated with business if they want to, take advantage of what you can do for them at the AI Foundry?
So the Greater Manchester AI Foundry is fully funded. So there's no cost to businesses to participate. So, we're hoping to kind of reach our goal of 170 businesses on the project. And again, it's at the 4 universities as well. So if you're not going to work with me here at MMU, you're going to work with my colleagues at Salford, University of Manchester, or even Lancaster.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely fascinating, and certainly something we'll probably cover again sometime in the future, and just see how the scheme's actually going, Sean. We think we'll be sending out contact details after the event to everyone on there, but obviously, is there a quick way that businesses may want to just get in touch or find out more information?
Yeah, so you can email me. It's s.brophy@mmu.ac.uk. I'd be happy to chat with you. Or failing that, just Google Greater Manchester AI Foundry. The first result will lead you to me as well. Okay. So if you are interested, I'm happy to schedule some time and talk about it and how we can help you and your business.
Okay, Sean, that's absolutely superb. Thank you so much. And again, part of what we want to do through events like this is just to raise awareness that this stuff isn't happening somewhere in, it's not Silicon Valley. This is right on our doorstep, stuff like this. And like I said, these conversations are increasingly becoming more naturalized, really, about what businesses can be doing and taking advantage of, from Sean and his colleagues at places like this. Sean, thank you so much for that. That's absolutely fascinating. Like I said, I'd love to have a follow-up at some stage, and then maybe in the next couple of months to see how things are going, and also find out a little bit more about some of the case studies and things that you've been working on. It's absolutely superb. Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the Chamber.
That's okay, no problem whatsoever. That's absolutely superb, and we'll share any contact details afterwards. Our next guest today is a member of staff and she's a little bit like a Swiss Army knife. She does that many different things and roles and tasks in a day job. It's hard to find out sometimes what I'm supposed to be talking to her about. However, today we're discussing the property and construction sector within Chamber membership and within Greater Manchester as well. So I'd like to welcome Diane Elbert-Morgan, who is a regular on these. And you're normally talking about Kickstart, aren't you, Diane? But today we're focusing on the on property and construction. Just like to ask, really, obviously it's one of the big sectors that we have in membership. We have businesses from a huge number of sectors, but we've also done quite a bit of work over the years, haven't we, with property and construction, and also, within Greater Manchester as well. It is one of the key sectors, isn't it? Do we offer anything specific for businesses within membership that are in this sector?
We do. Morning. Thanks for that. Never been called a Swiss Army knife before.
It's time for everything.
Oh, yeah. It's a big sector for us, property and construction. So out of the 4,500 businesses that are members, there's about 700 that sit in either property, construction, or somewhere in between. So we run specific events, some property focused, some construction focused, and some that are a bit of a mixed bag. What we also have is a wonderful steering group, if you like, a property and construction group that help me. So we meet every 2 months and they help me and you, as you know, Chris, to steer the policy, be the voice for the sector in the region, and also, to make sure that the events are topical, hot topics, and we're covering everything that our members need to know. And there's some people on the call as well, so welcome to them this morning. We work with local authorities as well, so all across Greater Manchester. I work closely with the councils, some of the P&C group do that as well, and we try to present the live opportunities in the sector. It's one of those sectors where we talk about supply chain all the time, so right from the tier 1 construction companies, big projects being delivered. We want our members to know about that and how they can get involved in the work as well. So yeah, really big sector.
It is important, isn't it, like you mentioned, because the property and construction sector underpins so much of the economy, basically, not just locally in Greater Manchester, but throughout the UK and worldwide as well, and it's always one of those that sort of, if there's any sort of economic problems, it always seems to be the first in and, the first out, you use it to grow forward. Looking at the last 12 months, and it's interesting because I always use the sector as an example of, one that hasn't shut down. It's carried on. There's been a lot of challenges, but how are you seeing things within the sector that's happened over the last 12 months? How's it fared?
It's been difficult, same as it has for everybody. And I guess an easy way to look at it would have been, property and construction carried on. It was, it was good. It was easy for them. They didn't have to, they didn't have any challenges, but they certainly did. Recruitment being an issue. They had people off sick, people who were, couldn't work, site working was an issue. So even though they could carry on and it sounded like, well, they're lucky, and I guess they were, it came with its problems as well. And, and if you look at it economically, lots of ups and downs as well where, stuff like residential couldn't carry on. So yeah, it came with its challenges as well over the last 12 months.
Oh, it's there. And are there some exciting projects coming up within Greater Manchester?
Yeah, which is, a bit of positivity. There's still, I guess the sector's still struggling with supply materials, things like that. But, they're coming out of that now. I think there's some 6-week delays on things as well. But the positivity is there's been some brilliant schemes announced over the last 12 months. And I brought somebody along this morning to talk about that. If I can introduce Emma from Morgan Sindall, she's going to give us an insight into some projects that have been announced over lockdown and where they're up to. Over to you, Emma. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, everybody. I'm Emma Williams. I'm Senior BD Manager at Morgan Sindall. Obviously, there's copious amounts of developments in Greater Manchester, but we've not got time to cover everything. So we just thought we'd pick a few exciting ones. So I just wanted, the first one really is really close to me personally because I was born there. So I was born in what was Crumsall Hospital at the time and is now North Manchester General Hospital. So that's had an influx of funding from government, one of the many hospitals that needs redeveloping as part of the government's HIP funding scheme. So they're doing a full transformation of the hospital campus. So it's not just, oh, the hospital needs refurbing and that's it. It's sort of making it into health and wellbeing focus. North Manchester, and I can say this because I've grown up there, is probably one of the most deprived areas at the moment in the country. So the ambition for the trust and the council and the health and care partnership is really to change the lives of the people that live in North Manchester. So they're not just doing the acute hospital. 70% of it does need rebuilding, but they're also doing a health and wellbeing hub, an education centre, a new mental health hospital, public realm works, car parking. The whole estate is just going to get revamped, and it's going to create such a difference for the people of North Manchester. The amount of social value that will be created throughout the build process from the contractors that are going to be involved. There's 2,000 people that work at the hospital, and a lot of them are from the local area. So obviously they'll be affected by the build in a good way. It can benefit them. So I think Vinci are already involved doing the new mental health hospital. And then there's going to be the first sort of phase is going to start soon to do some sort of enabling works and car parking and to get the site unlocked, ready for the new hospital. So very exciting.
Oh, brilliant. Great, like you said, great for the area. And so how far is it underway, this, and how soon do you think it'll have an impact, Emma, on the area?
Well, there's already activity on site at the moment, and contractors about to be announced for the first phase. Morgan Sindall are in the race for that, so I can't say any more than that. Just watch this space, fingers crossed. So yeah, works are imminent, funding's in place. So as soon as the enabling works are underway, that's when whoever is appointed will start to make an impact. As soon as construction work sites that starts on site, that's when an impact starts in the area.
Wow. And is it similar to something that we saw that was an entry for building of the year? Is it Tameside, where they'd done everything in one? You know, somebody could go there and they could see the doctor, they could see the social workers, you know, things like that.
Yeah. That's what they're thinking of doing in the sort of wellbeing hub. So there will be a wellbeing hub on site, which is more of a community-based facility, really. Local people can come in and there'll be a community cafe and allotment space and stuff like that. It's not a community hub in the sense of Tameside. This is a different development. Morgan Sindall are actually looking at one for Manchester City Council in Gorton at the moment that's very similar to the Tameside one. It's more of a smaller community GP type facility as opposed to this is the big hospital, but there will be education facilities on site and health and wellbeing centres and things like that. But this is more of a wider hospital redevelopment.
Okay, fabulous. And what else have we got coming up?
So that's North Manchester, so that's my neck of the woods. But then whatever the other area that's quite close to me is Salford. So our office is based in Salford. I'm not there today, I'm at home, but we're in Salford Quays. And Morgan Sindall Group as a whole have been active in Salford for numerous years through Muse and Lovell and Morgan Sindall Construction. I think we're delivering are about to deliver nearly £4 billion worth of work in Salford. So it's a really exciting area for us. But the one thing I wanted to talk about was the Salford Crescent master plan. So while she's saying that during the lockdown, property and construction suffered slightly, I mean, generally, in every recession that we've seen over the last 15 years, construction has been hit massively, hasn't it? So yes, we have suffered a little during this, but you're right, we have carried on and it hasn't really impacted us as much as it did in the past. So it was great to see that some of these developments still carried on moving. So English Cities Fund were appointed by University of Salford and Salford City Council as their developer partner for Salford Crescent master plan, and that's the SRF's been completed now, and things will start to move on that. I mean, I'm not an expert, I'm not one of the developer partners, so they'll know more than I do, but pretty sure that's going to start moving this year. And it's regenerating the whole of Salford Crescent. So if you imagine the university campus all the way down Salford Crescent, the Adelphi Village, Peel Park, it's going to be a massive development. So it'll be really exciting for the people of Salford. If there's anyone from Salford on the call this morning, it's very exciting times for Salford.
So we're residential at the heart of it, Emma, because there's a lot of development we've already seen, down Chapel Street.
Yeah, so ECF have already delivered in Chapel Street as well, and Salford Central and New Bailey, and a lot of that has been residential led. But this one is a real innovation district. It's not just residential. There will be like 3,000 homes, I think, over 1 million square feet of commercial space, but there's 1 million square feet and above of education space. And one of the zones, I think it's split into 6 zones. One of the zones, zone 2, is all around green space. And that's one of the biggest ones. So they're not getting rid of green space. It's all about education, innovation, and residential. So it's not just residential homes. It's a real mixed use development.
Exciting stuff, isn't it? This is what we need to see, where they're encapsulating everything into, don't just build an apartment and, the value. So it was all focused on value and the increased value. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, well, we're already on site with some of the university buildings that are part of the master plan. So they've kick-started it with education. So we're building the School of Science and Engineering for University of Salford, and we're about to start on site with the North of England Centre of Robotics Innovation. I've said that wrong. NERICS. North of England Robotics Innovation Centre. It's a very long name. So yeah, we're going to start on site with that soon as well. So it's education at the start. And then I think some residential will come, and like I say, green space.
Yeah, that'd be good. And lastly, we have the exciting Mayfield that we've been hearing about.
I know, well, speaking about green space, so I really am not an expert on this one, but I have to say it excites me because it's like a 6.5 acre park that's coming into Manchester city centre, essentially. We've not had a park in the city for 100 years. So that's just amazing. So they've already kickstarted development on that with some of the public realm space, and then commercial and car parking. Again, car parking unlocks a lot of developments. So generally you have to start with something like that to get it going. But I know Louise Wyman's really excited about Mayfield because of the public realm and the open space. I mean, at the end of the day, it used to be a big industrial area, didn't it? And going from Manchester's industrial heritage to then bringing it green and open and places for people to come, and not likening it to somewhere like Central Park, but how amazing would it be for people, to be coming into Manchester to that public area and green space. So yeah,
it is exciting. When you just keep reading about it and thinking there's another update, there's something else going on, it's nice to hear it. Do you think it's, last question this, sorry Emma, do you think is it something that's been replicated out of another city, maybe internationally? I always wonder if it's likened to something,
From what I've heard of the development partnership, the Mayfield Partnership, they don't really liken it to anything else. I think they see their development as unique. Like I just said, there's Central Park in New York, isn't there? And obviously you've got Hyde Park in London. But I think this development itself is unlike anything else that's been done elsewhere. It's got its industrial heritage. There's little quirky food stalls popping up. They've been hosting music venue concerts in there in the old depot, so it's an old rail depot as well. Then it's going to have this brand new commercial and residential space, but then on the flip side of that, this brand new 6.5 acre park. So the only thing I could liken it to slightly is the Central Park, but not with the industrial side. So I think they'd like to say the unique, but you'd have to ask the Mayfield Partnership.
Oh, thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you. It's nice to have some positivity in it and see the the projects that are going ahead and what a difference they'll make to the region and the city. So thank you very much, Amber.
You're welcome. Any questions?
There's been a couple of comments actually, and Peter McDermott's on, who we do a lot of work with University of Salford, and he's just put a link into the master plan, I think, there as well, and that sounds a fabulous piece of work. And also Hazel's put a comment as well, and linking it back to where we've been over the last 12 months. And one of the things to come out of COVID is that people do need that green space as well. It can't be, it just can't be, concrete and bricks and one thing or another. So I think that park bit, and I know that's been on the planning boards for some time, but to actually start to see that happen now, I think is a reflection on, what we need in the future as well as what we need, 12, 18 months ago as well. And it's how that develops, I think, which is quite exciting. So some really, really good stuff there, Emma, and thank you for that update.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay, that's superb. If there is anything else for Emma, please drop it in the chat, and we'll try and get around to it before we finish. Diane, thank you so much for that insight. Really good to see what we're doing around this sector. It's always been one of the most forward-looking and active sectors in membership, and you've done some fantastic work with them over the last few years, and I know you will be doing that for some time to come in amongst everything else that you're doing. And of course, Diane is also one of the the leading forces behind the work that we're doing on Kickstart as well, getting young people up and into business. And we've had some really, really good success stories that Diane's been heavily involved with over the last couple of weeks with that as well. So, like I said, a lot of things being juggled at the same time, but a lot of stuff now beginning to come off, and exactly the right type of stuff that we need within the community, within the Greater Manchester economy as well, if we are going to go forward from where we have been over the last 12 months. So Diane, thank you very much for taking the time today to join us. Our last speaker today is one of our regulars, and it's Subra, our head of research. Good morning, Subra.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And when we last spoke, our last Chamber Live event, I think it was the day before the budget. That seems an awful long time ago. It's only a fortnight, but feels like it was last year, I think, really. Obviously, the headlines and things and people who've moved on or whatever, but I just want to pick up on the budget as well and your sort of response to it, because sometimes with the budget, there's an awful lot of focus done on the day and getting a quick response out to one thing or another. And it's, a few weeks later, you start to look at things in a bit more detail. Obviously, a lot of it was focused on the COVID support bit, the extension of furlough and one thing or another, which is all good stuff, actually, I suppose, from a business perspective. Was anything in there really that has sort of been missed in the headlines, or, any sort of other wins that were in there for businesses that we've been working on?
So the common verdict on the budget seems to have been that it is very good for the short term in offering the support for businesses to tide over the current crisis. And that's primarily led by the support schemes, which have all been extended until the 30th of September. But then the long-term economic vision seems to be lacking. How are we going to level up the economy? What are the big infrastructure projects that we need to commission to balance the different regions? How are we going to address the regional disparities and inequalities? Those things have been completely missed out on this budget. The Chancellor might respond that in the spending review, he announced the Levelling Up Fund, which was £4 billion, but then it's every allocation is capped at 20 million. And essentially, it is a scheme that local councils have to bid against one another to actually get that assistance. So we know that Bolton got 20 million for the development of the town centre. But then, you might say, well, how does that help all of Greater Manchester? And so the verdict clearly is correct in the sense that the Chancellor and the government, to an extent, have not articulated what their plans are for levelling up. And Boris Johnson came to power on the back of a levelling up promise, and we still don't know what that actually means or what they think about it.
And of course, since then, we've also heard that, in the industrial strategy is no more as well. And this, again, was one of the big things that I know a lot of members were very interested in this, because we've not had an industrial strategy for some time, or none that was sort of so obvious, really. And now it's a bit disappointing that's gone by the wayside of a lot of other government initiatives. So it's a time when you need that firm focus going forward. It's all a little bit hazy, isn't it, really, with things? And I think the point you make about levelling up is that exactly. We need some sort of certainty to go forward. We're not totally reliant on it, but I'll tell you something, it's very helpful, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the industrial strategies were extremely important for the regions that built them. And this is a serious case of policy flip-flop, because Theresa May's government really started pushing every region, every council to have a local industrial strategy. And, lots of money was spent on developing these strategies. And then 3 years later, we suddenly don't need them anymore, apparently. It's a big issue for many regions, because the skills strategy, the skills plan, the local development plans, the local economic growth plans, all sort of tied in with the local industrial strategies. And the local industrial strategies actually prioritized what sectors it is that different regions want to develop. And so, the Industrial Strategy Council, the advisory board, has been decommissioned, so they are no longer at work. the government wants to come up with a centralized plan, and we know that historically centralized plans haven't necessarily worked because they do not take into account local nuances, local differences, etc. And so it is going to be a big issue, and we don't know what it is going to be replaced with. And until then, there is going to be some ambiguity and gaps in regional policymaking.
Just one other thing, separate from what's going on from a sort of political perspective and future plans and one thing and another. A set of figures released last week, the back end of it from the ONS around trade figures and for January, and I think exports were down 40% and imports were down 28%. So a real sort of hit, really, as to what it could be. Is there any surprise, really, bearing in mind the conversations we've been having with our members that are being hit with all sorts of things, looking to do international trade? Are you at all surprised that these figures are looking quite as gloomy as they are?
The figures are gloomy. And there are, I think, two reasons for it. One is, of course, that many businesses try to ship goods before the December 31st deadline. And just looking into the export docs data from ourselves, from within the chamber, and having spoken to some colleagues, what we noticed is that the number of export documentation processed actually went up in December compared to November. In every year past, it has been the other way around. So December is usually a calm and quiet month compared to October and November, which are actually really busy months. So that is probably one reason which has had a slight impact, but that is not the main reason, of course. The main reason is that there have been numerous problems trying to move goods across the border. And I find this absolutely ironic because fishing was one of the main sticking points in coming to an agreement with the EU. And we were told we can get control of our waters. Boris Johnson famously made that comment to Nicola Sturgeon that she can consume the prodigious amount of fish that she would ever want. But what has actually crashed in terms of exports? It's the export of live animals and it's the export of fish and shellfish. It was symbolic, as many people pointed out, but then having got an agreement which actually makes the export of live animals and fish so difficult, we are now in a situation where we can catch all the fish that we want, but we don't know what to do with it. Because you can't export it. There are good export markets previously. There still are, I suppose. But there has been an enormous amount of difficulty, and this has been repeatedly pointed to us by our members, in trying to move goods across the border, particularly live animals, because the labeling requirements are unclear. The customs declaration requirements are unclear. Different customs agencies in European countries are interpreting the terms differently, and different shipping companies, logistics companies are interpreting the regulations differently. So nobody knows what's going on.
And that is something we're hearing on a daily basis when we're getting a lot of members ringing up, and in some cases it seems like it's getting resolved. It seems like some of the issues are actually getting worse, really. And there's all sorts of nuances within this, and there's quite some major stuff as well. I know a couple of weeks ago we had a conversation around the new VAT implications, and it seemed at the time that even the people that were setting the rules in government weren't quite sure what those rules should be. So you see where this has that trickle-down effect. But obviously now it's really beginning to impact on that. So, Subra, thank you so much for that again, and your sort of insight into some of this stuff. And again, what we try and do is obviously we take the big sort of headlines and work out what happens and what the impact of that is for local business and local economy. I think briefly on the chat there was a link went through. We're going to be closing our quarterly economic survey for quarter one this year today, and obviously that's a big piece of work that Subra is involved with. And we've got our launch event on the 26th of March, which obviously if you can attend, please do so, and come and listen to Subra explain what is going on within the local economy and the impact of all these things, both COVID, Brexit and all the rest of it. But all that is really from the voice of business, from the direct feedback of people like yourselves, our members and other businesses as to what's going on within the local economy. So it's well worth attending that and just finding out what's going on. It should be an interesting 12 months, I think, probably more so than previous years when it's coming to the quarterly economic survey. But we shall see and hopefully try and make sense of some of this. Also playing things like the budget and other stuff that we've heard about as well today. So Subra, thank you so much for taking the time. There's a link there to the event just come through on the chat. And so that's it. I don't think there's anything left outstanding. There's a couple of questions from Peter around things like the industrial strategy and what's happening with sectors and one thing and another. It does feel like the industrial strategy is something that the government wants to sort of airbrush from history, as it were, really, and come up with something else. And that'll be interesting how that impacts on various sectors. And of course, as we've heard from Diane and Emma, the property and construction sector is one of those key ones. There's still going to be sector-specific deals that are going to be in place. Only time will tell, but guarantee and I can promise you we'll keep our eyes and ears open on that and let you know what happens and keep you informed of all that. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Thanks to our speakers. Thank you to Sean from the AI Foundry. Thanks to Diane and also thanks to Emma as well from Morgan Stanley to come along and just give us some idea about what's going on, some of the good news. It's about time we had some real positive stuff going out there, isn't it? To give us all a bit of a spring in our step as hopefully we're approaching the end of lockdown, got the vaccination programme going and hopefully, fingers crossed, in a couple of months' time we can be getting back to as near normal as we possibly can hope for. All that remains for me to say is thank you all for joining us. Again, look out for a repeat of this. We've got it out going out on our podcast and also through our YouTube channel. So if you want to catch any piece you may have missed or whatever it is, it's there for you to catch up with. This time next week, we've got our networking event, our virtual networking event. And then in 2 weeks' time, we've got Chamber Live again. So that'll be important. And also, as we get ever closer to the mayoral election in May, we'll probably start to drip some of that into it as well, because the local elections will be taking place this year. They were postponed last year. So we will see a mayoral election in May this year, which could be quite an interesting contest in itself. So thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for all your involvement. Thanks to our speakers and enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Thank you.